Hey everybody, today I'm going to do a special event where I have Natalie Neckyfarow coming in, so I'm just waiting for her to pop on live. We're going to be talking about letting go of the hustle culture and finding your feminine flow, which I'm very excited to talk about. So, if you don't know me, I'm Sofia Wren and I'm a writer, and I'm also a writing coach, and I am very stoked. Hey there, Natalie. Here she is. All right. So we'll be talking about how. Hey, here we go. Hey, you're there.
I'm here.
How's it going?
Good, good. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm awesome. So I'll just read your bio real quick for everybody who is
Awesome.
just meeting you. Um, Natalie is an actress, writer, and embodiment coach who helps creative women experience more balance, productivity, and creativity in their day-to-day lives. Her joyful action coaching method focuses on deepening the connection to our bodies, releasing stuck emotions and stress, shifting belief systems, and taking aligned action to achieve our biggest and wildest dreams. And today we're going to talk about letting go of hustle culture and embracing feminine flow, and how you can resource your body to experience more ease, creativity, and flow in your day-to-day life. So very excited for this, whether you are a writer or you have other things that you're doing for your life, for your business, for some other project. It's really easy to get into hustle culture and hustle mode. So we're going to talk more about that today and how to get into flow mode. So thanks for coming on the show, Natalie.
Yeah, it's so great to reconnect.
Yeah. So tell us what got you into this topic.
Oh, wow. Um, I think it's a lifelong journey. Perhaps it is for all of us because, so much of being in hustle culture is living in society today. I think that having always been an artist, I was given this message that, if I wanted to be an artist, that was fine, but I also had to do a million other things because, of course, I was never going to make enough money to sustain myself as an artist. So there became like this pressure to do more because clearly that was the only way to succeed. Growing up, I also, my parents were both, very practical people, and one of them a teacher, another one an engineer. And so there was just a real emphasis on hard work. And so, I found that in an effort to like please them and to sort of support myself or support my dream as an artist, I did a lot of things. I sort of defaulted to a lot of sort of more hustle culture type behavior to sort of prove that I was capable of not like ruining my life. It's like there's like this whole thing. It's like, oh well, if you haven't, if you're an artist, then you can't succeed at other things either. And so I felt like this need that I had to prove that I couldn't just be an artist, but I had to be good at everything. I think I was like my late 20s, because my 20s I've always been pretty energetic, but like towards my late 20s I started getting really tired because I was doing I live in New York City, and I was doing this whole like thing where I would get up and I would teach and I would rent auditions, and I would be on the subway from like, 6 in the morning until like sometimes 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and running myself really wild and crazy. And I got to the point where I was like, I'm really tired and I don't think I can keep doing this. And so that was when I started examining like there has to be a different way of doing that, and what is that way? And it's been a journey. It's definitely didn't figure it out overnight. So
Well, thanks for sharing that, because maybe some people listening can relate to that weird place of being creative and artistic and wanting to bring that into your career, but then hearing that that's going to impoverish you for the rest of your life. So you have to do more than that. You have maybe a gifted area, but you're really encouraged to like gather up every other activity as well, just in case, and so I resonate with that. I wonder if anybody else does too. So thanks for sharing that. And I also relate to like burning, going crazy in my 20s and then, you know, and then having a realization of like, this actually isn't sustainable. What are we going to do? So yeah, as I imagine, you probably have gathered that this is not just a you problem, that this is more of a bigger problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it affects artists maybe the most. Well, I think it depends on what your upbringing is, right? So like if you're an artist who is the weirdo in your family and you're the one who's different from everyone else, then I think it affects you maybe more than anybody else, because you're in this weird juggling pattern where you're trying to satisfy the thing that brings you, love and joy, and then you're fighting against the sort of pressures within your environment to like prove that you're stable and secure. I think that sometimes artists who are brought up in families of artists don't have that problem, right? Because it's like then you start to live into the way of being more creative and already have that intuitive connection to flow and sort of recognize that ability as being sort of essential and actually a way that you can do everything. I think that, our work life culture, and, I think a lot of us got a big awakening during COVID about work life culture and sort of, because there were so many extra pressures on people from, having kids at home and having to, homeschool them while you're working, to, all of the other assortments of pressures from, just living through a pandemic, sort of really made a lot of us recognize that our container was just too damn full. And if you don't start to relieve the pressure, then you're going to get sick. You're going to get, ill, or, be dealing with a situation that's not particularly healthy in one way or the other in the long run. So I think a lot of people are much more aware that this is not sustainable, but when it's so baked into our culture, it's really hard to turn it off.
Yeah, totally. So what do we do about this crazy stuff? How do we
how
do we get out of this mode and kind of get our...
Well, I think there's many different ways, and I decided to get trained as a life coach in 2020. And it was hugely because of all of the upheaval going on in the world, not just the pandemic, but also the Black Lives Matter movement after George Floyd was killed, and all of the things that were coming to light that were so important, and my own need and desire to be able to have more capacity to work with people. And to do my work, but also to contribute as a member of society. And it's like when you feel like your cup is really full and you want to help when there's a crisis, but you feel like you literally can't because you can't really take care of yourself, then that's when the work needs to be done. So I enrolled in a life coaching program, and two fundamental tenets of that program were sisterhood and this idea of planning with your cycle. And the idea of sisterhood is this idea that women can be our friends and our greatest allies rather than people we need to compete with, rather than people that we need to judge ourselves based on. And unfortunately, our society, patriarchy, has kind of created this weird model where women have felt like they needed to compete with each other. And so it was very healing to be in an environment where we were encouraged to be present and share and be vulnerable. And it wasn't always about sharing your triumphs, because how many times have you gone to a networking event and you meet someone and all you talk about are all the wins that you've had, right? And while it's really important to talk about your wins, it's in our vulnerabilities that we really learn from each other and grow from each other, and also normalize the fact that we're not supposed to be superhuman. We're supposed to be human.
Yes.
So that was a huge piece. And the other piece was this planning with my cycle and figuring out what that meant. And, you know, it's like, I got my period when I was 12. And I think most girls, you know, when they get their period, there's obviously an awareness that it exists, but a lot of times there's a separation from it. It's like an annoyance. It's a stupid thing that gets in the way. Like, I was a dancer, so, you know, it was annoying because, you know, it's like I had to like deal with it and use tampons and like all this stuff. And if you were an athlete, it was similar. And it was like, oh, if you get your period at the wrong time, it's really embarrassing. And so just the culture around our periods is really, was really, at least when I was growing up, was really not in a space where I didn't have long conversations with my mom or my sisters or any of the women in my family about the fact that there are aspects to our cycle that are actually quite positive, and that we can actually use tracking our cycle for more than just being aware of when do I need to get more tampons and like make sure I have ibuprofen in the house, right? So and so, you know, it was like a process, right? Because, you know, part of it is like learning that it's okay to rest, right?
Yeah.
And baked into our culture, we're basically told it's not okay to rest. We're basically told like, oh, well, you know, you've got to be strong. So if you've got a commitment, then you better show up for it. It doesn't matter whether you have your period or not. You should be able to show up normally and the same regardless.
And it's like you're losing momentum,
yeah,
you know, because it's you might have to take some time off of like your workout routine or whatever you were getting momentum with before. And then if you're one of those people who loves to get stuff done like me, you might be like, oh my God, I'm getting off track. I'm losing my place. It's going to take me extra time to get back to where I was. And like, da, 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 da. But like, you know, it's hard sometimes to just surrender into that. Like, it is what it is, you know, but versus fighting it or feeling the feelings of resentment or frustration or self-blame or just blame at the universe that like, why do I even have a cycle at all?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's a real process of growth, because when you start tracking your cycle and you start deciding, okay, I'm going to actually rest the first couple of days of my period. And you might still have to do some work, right? But like, the way you show up is different. It's like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I recognize that I work from home and like I have a business, so I have a lot more flexibility than some people. But, you know, it's the small steps. It's like, oh, okay, well, I know that I'm going to get my period, so today's not the day for me to like, you know, work past 5 o'clock. Today's not the day for me to try to finish all my projects. You know, if I know my period's coming, we actually have some built-in mechanisms within our cycle to help us sort of prepare for our period. And it's like the different energies that come with our cycle, and it's all based on our hormones, are designed to carry us through the cyclical process. Men's cycles, hormonal cycles, are like a 24-hour cycle, whereas for women, ours is a 28, 29-day hormonal cycle. But if we actually follow the hormonal cycle and lean into the energy of each part of our cycle, then we get to do all the things. We're just not doing all the things at once. We're not necessarily doing all the things in one day. So it is a transition, learning how to take a step back, learning how to rest. But in the doing of it, over time. I've been doing this for about 3 years now. It starts to have its own rewards, right? And, some of those are things like intuition. It's like if you actually take time to rest, you get to refill your cup, right? And if we lean into the fact that around our periods, we don't really feel like doing much anyway, and we take that time to rest, so we don't, go out or book tons of social commitments around our period, and we use that time to like restore and take care of ourselves and rest. And a lot of times I'll get some great ideas when I'm bleeding. So like it's just like it's this space where once you start to be like, oh, the energy is good for this, and then you start to become more aware and open to it, then each part gets to like blossom and kind of have its own space. And then I it's like recently that I've started to feel like, oh, I like have a list, and I know I'm gonna get to that stuff, but like I don't feel the pressure to get it done the same day, which
That's
for
nice.
years, if the list was there, it was like, oh shit, I only checked like half of my list off. Oh my God, tomorrow is gonna suck. But it's like, no, we get to be in control of how we feel about our work, and we get to prioritize what matters. So all of those things are really huge.
And
And
like,
and
like what kind of occurs to me right now too is like, sometimes you get those days where you're like really tired and you don't even know why. And like for myself, sometimes I go into like trying to identify the reason why, so then I can justify if I, really need to have a rest now. Like why is it because I didn't get enough sleep last night, or like sleep debt from before, or like because I did this or that. And it's like, trying to get to a point where you can just actually listen to your body and like trust yourself that even if it wasn't like with your cycle or something else that's obvious to you as to but to just like let yourself rest anyway. To me, that's like really been monumental, because I always would feel like it has to make sense to my brain as to like why I'm allowed rest, versus like, let me just trust myself, and then also trust that I will reboot. If I let myself shut down, it's okay.
yeah, I think that's the hardest part about hustle culture is like we start to feel that if we're not doing anything, that we're not worth anything, or that we're going to become invisible, or that someone is that we're not going to have this that people are going to start to ignore us, and the reality is it's just not true. And we have to start to like step back and experience something new in order for, and it's like it's a whole rewiring of your body and your nervous system and whatever, because a lot of us rely on being busy to feel important or valuable, right? And so as soon as we're not busy, that's when a lot of our doubts come in. That's when a lot of our emotions come in. That's when all of those limiting beliefs come in, because we're so busy, we're like trying to crowd all that stuff out. But the great thing about slowing down is that, on the other side of feeling and hearing those thoughts is that we get an opportunity to heal them. And when we start healing them, we're actually creating space for more. So, a lot of the work I do with people is helping them change habits and patterns. And just the habit of being busy all the time is one of those patterns. And we have to start to like examine not only why do we do this pattern, like the initial reason is because I was brought up this way, and society sort of reinforced it, and I got accolades when I made good grades, and I did all the things, and so it made me feel like doing more was the right solution. So that's the beginning. But when we start to take that away, it's like, oh, well, what is the belief that I have about the way I need to show up in the world, or what emotional stuff is underneath that? And we get to start to heal all that, which is such a gift, because then we get to show up and be so much more present for our careers and our families and our communities and our creative work as writers or artists, whatever we do. And really, that's kind of the work. It's like, how can we get back to the most pure form of ourselves? That's where all the creativity and intuition comes in. And, I hesitate to even put the word productivity in my bio, but I do feel like our definition of productivity has kind of become like this, like how many things have you checked off your to-do list? But it really is more about the quality, right? The quality of things that you are, the quality of the things that you're doing. And really
really important, because like, so I've been a copywriter before, and I used to work on these $10,000 marketing launches, and I would get paid for like, you know, at a flat rate. But then I would have to produce all of this writing really, you know, within a time frame. And I had to really let go of my conceptions about like you work and then you rest and then you work and then you rest. This idea of this sort of like very linear way it has to be, or that I had to like deserve the rest, you know, by working hard first. Because what I would find is that when I integrated rest and pleasurable activities, I call it a runway to the creative process. So
Yeah.
like walk, taking a bath, like doing these things that are restful and feel good, but like I'm not sitting at my computer doing my job, you know, apparently I'm off having fun, lollygagging, you know. I had to kind of overcome some of the limiting beliefs about like, is this allowed?
Yeah.
Because when I just trusted myself and what I felt like doing, then I would come to the computer inspired and like bust it out in like a tenth of the time it would have taken me to crap out every word like in a constipated fashion. Like it wasn't working out before, but I found a way that was way more fun and I didn't hate my life. So but that just kind of speaks to like our conception of as creators, we really need to look at our work and rest, how we understand it, how we understand what we're allowed to do at certain parts of the creative process, because you could actually end up being more productive, like you said, by being less productive, you know, in a way.
Well, and I think the important part is that you actually get to feel better while you're doing it too, which I think we're like, you know, you mentioned the word pleasure, but it's like, I think there's a certain like, you know, accolade or whatever that we've received from like suffering for our work, you know, and like there's the whole like there's the whole struggling artist like myth, and there's you know, there's this idea that like, you know, nothing good can come if you don't work hard. But I always like to challenge that and be like, well, what if I get to not wait to enjoy things when they're done, but I get to enjoy things along the way. And by leaning into how I'm feeling in my body and what I'm inspired to do, it's all gonna come out in the wash. And I like, you know, it's sometimes you're like, I even like procrastination. I like feel like it's talked about in productivity community so much. And I feel like procrastination is just like the wrong word, because I think sometimes, yes, we can be literally blocking ourselves from getting things done. But I think more often it's just that we need something else to get things done. And if we can keep contextualizing it as like, oh, this is wrong, this is bad, this thing is due, I have to do this thing next, then we're just sort of adding layers of shame and frustration and anger and all kinds of external forces on top of what we're doing, instead of being like, you know what? I'm not feeling moved at this moment. If I go walk around the block, or I go do the dishes, or I clean up my bedroom, like, is that gonna help me feel inspired and ready to sit down? And we get to like really interrogate that, try it on. And then the more we do it, we start to be able to really trust ourselves and be like, oh yeah, well, it seemed really weird that I suddenly got inspired to like pull everything out of all my cabinets and reorganize my altar, which I did last week. But like when I was done, I was like, oh my God, I feel so much better. And there was like so much more space, and all of the creativity came flowing in. Right. So, you know, we just have to trust our impulses a lot more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I love that. I love the whole process of like, you know, inner listening and finding those like kind of inner instructions, and then going and doing it and finding out it was such a good idea.
Yeah.
Which you'll know if you don't try it. And it's like we get into these spirals where, like you said, like you get overworked or you get burnt out, and then your negative thinking is going to be more powerful because you're in these like negative cycles, and then you're going to be feeling other people's judgment of you not being good enough more, or you're going to start feeling like you're even more not allowed to rest because you're so behind and you haven't made anything with your life. And it's like it just becomes more and more spirally. So it's like the times when I most need rest are when I am most resistant and telling myself like, no, it's absolutely urgent. And so it can be really hard to snap out of it. In which case, don't have to do it by yourself. There are people out there like Natalie who this is her whole thing. And I know you've got a workshop coming up on Wednesday, and you do other events too. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about all the stuff you do?
Sure. So part of what I do, so I've also noticed we've had a couple of men join us for our conversation.
Cool.
Yeah. So planning with your cycle. I'm teaching a free workshop on Wednesday. It's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 Pacific time, and we are going to be talking about menstrual cycle. But like, if you're a guy, you know lots of women in your life, including your mother. So like, we're in 2023, so we can all listen to chats about menstrual cycles without getting freaked out. I've been very curious. We're also going to be talking about the cycle of the moon, and they're very like closely equated to each other. And so the Wednesday happens to be a new moon. New moons are a great time for setting intentions and starting your planning process for a month. And a moon cycle is 29 and a half days. So it's a little shorter than a standard month, but when you start to work with the energy of the new moon is empty, and then the full moon is full, and you work with all of the energies in between. It's very similar to this cycle that we have as women. So we can work with them together. We can work with them separately. And I haven't gotten a chance to work with a lot of guys yet, but I'm so very curious. So if you're a guy who's curious, please come. I just want to throw that out there. But we're going to be talking about what energies and what activities are great for each part of the cycle. And then from there, at the very end of the workshop, I'm going to be leading a mini new moon ceremony. I teach embodiment circles, and so sometimes I will do like a 90-minute workshop where I will lead us through a series of journal prompts relative to the new moon or the full moon, and then we'll do a full body experience to help bring in what we're working on. But this particular workshop is to be a little bit more informational, so that people get an opportunity to learn more about working in this way, and what starting to make some of these changes in your life might look like. And then we get to immediately start to apply it on the new moon, so that you can start to set intentions for the month and map out like when you're going to do different activities in your business or in your career or in your life based on the energies of the month. And I'll explain, like, if your period and your moon cycle are not totally matched up, I'll explain some of the things that I've kind of figured out on my own about how those can kind of work together, how they can help each other, how sometimes you need to prioritize one over the other. So I'll be chatting about that as well. And then, and then this intention setting. I do energy work and movement. I don't think we're going to do movement on Wednesday, but who knows, like whatever the spirit is moving me towards. But it's just great to be in community and to be in discussion about this stuff. We really have to refine the ways of our body and the ways of nature. The industrial age and the age of computers have really pulled us away from this instinctual way of being, but our instinct is where our creativity lives. So if we want to stay really creative and really empathetic and connected to one another, it's so vital that we either strengthen this or we relearn how to do this work. So that workshop, you can sign up at the link in my bio. I would love to have you there. I think that's it for right now. If you join that workshop, there will be a replay if you cannot make it live. I always prefer people to come live because it's really fun to have that energy. But if you want the information and you want to do it and it's just like doesn't work in your schedule, please sign up. And that way you'll also be on my list. So you'll find out about upcoming circles where we're going to be doing more fun embodiment work. So yeah.
And if you happen to be on strike right now,
yes. So I don't know how many people are watching it right now who are actors, writers, or part of the entertainment industry, but I am running strike support circles on Sunday, every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time. So you can come and show up as you are. Allow yourself to be just whatever is going on, right? So, you know, this is a big emotional roller coaster. There's huge changes happening in our industry. We're hopefully going to prevent them from stealing our likeness and turning us into computers. And really get to have a sustainable wage moving forward, which, you know, things have just gotten really out of whack with the streaming universe. So it's high time. So in the meantime, before those deals come through, I'll be showing up and inviting everyone to share whatever's going on for them. It's totally private. That's not recorded. So you can say whatever you want. It will not leave the space. And then we'll do a practice together to help release and move through whatever's coming up for people. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing that.
Yeah. Thanks
Awesome. Well, if you guys
for asking about it. Yeah. And the links for all of this stuff is in my bio as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, go follow Natalie and stay in touch. She's good people, and love what you're doing both for the community and for individuals. So thanks for coming on, talking about all of this. I know it's important for me, and I have made videos about this kind of thing in the past and articles even, and it's definitely something that I believe that we have to be really mindful of what we've learned about the rest and work cycles, and does it actually work for us as a human right now, because we are in charge. So
yes. And it's really easy to like blame your job, especially if you have a regular 9 to 5. And I'll admit I don't have a regular 9 to 5, but we get to be rebels. We get to set boundaries in our own space, right? So, you know, there are rules, and then there are ways that we think that there are rules that maybe that's not actually true. And so you can start to think about the small ways that you get to take care of yourself, right? And then by doing that, by modeling that within your work environment, other people get to see how you show up in the world, and then that gives them a little bit more permission. And then it's a domino effect, right? So creating space for you to take care of yourself creates other space for people to take care of themselves. And, you know, there's been so many studies about how companies that have great benefits and like perks, that their employees are actually more productive, like their work better, stay longer. So there's a real case for you to continue to show up in your best self, which includes taking care of yourself and taking rest when you need it. So, take it on, be a rebel, spread the word. And you know, and it's hard, and don't be discouraged if it's hard in the beginning, because as I mentioned at the beginning, I've been working on this process for 3 years, and it's starting to feel intuitive, and it's starting to feel like it's a way of being for me now that I don't really have to think twice about. But it took me a while to get here, and so love yourself for trying to do things differently. Love yourself for making that stand, for setting those boundaries, for being willing to listen to yourself. That's a really radical but important act. And from taking care of ourselves, we can take better care of each other. So
absolutely. And it's like whatever career you are pursuing, you know, like try to build it around yourself. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not like it's going to go morph itself to you later.
I know. It's like, and I think that's the danger as an actor. You're like, oh, well, I'll do that when I'm making $1 million, right? Or I'll do that when I'm making a sustainable living. Unfortunately, as we now know, there's not very many actors who are making sustainable livings. All these people who are like doing series regulars, okay. But people who are doing recurring roles, a lot of them haven't been making a sustainable living, which is horrifying, right? So we can't wait until we're making the money or have reached the level of success that we think we want to reach, because this is, you know, this is our lives. It's not like we're going to suddenly reach some pinnacle, right? This is the way we live our lives, and you only got one. Well,
And the goal,
depending on what you believe,
so
but you've got this life, and you might as well experience and enjoy as much of it as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note, let's go out and live life. Thanks everybody for showing up. Thank you, Natalie, for being here. This has been fun. I appreciate everybody. And yeah, you guys have a good one.
All right. Great chatting with you, Sofia, as always. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Bye.